Ever pondered why some nations become the targets of global disdain more than others? In our world of over 7 billion people, cohabiting in nearly 200 countries, it's only natural that some nations are favored more than others. But have you ever wondered which countries top the list of the most disliked? Well, we're about to embark on a journey to explore this intriguing topic. Today we're unfolding the countdown of the top 10 most hated countries in the world. But before we dive in, let's clarify something. This list doesn't reflect the people living in these countries, but rather their governments and their policies. We've put together this list based on various factors such as international relations, human rights records, and political controversies. It's important to remember that every country has its own unique set of challenges and circumstances. And while these countries might be hated by some, they're also home to millions of people who are just trying to live their lives as best as they can. So, who's on the list? We have a diverse mix of nations from the Far East to the Middle East across the vast expanses of Asia, the Americas, and the Middle East. These countries include the likes of China, Syria, Iran, Israel, Iraq, Russia, Saudi Arabia, the United States, North Korea, and India. Each of these nations has found itself in the global spotlight for various reasons, drawing the ire and criticism of the international community. But what is it about these countries that make them so disliked? Is it their political policies, their human rights records, or something else entirely? That's exactly what we're going to explore. We'll delve into the intricacies of each nation, explore their histories, their politics, and their controversies. We'll try to understand why they're viewed the way they are and what it means for the people living there. So, are you ready to dive deep into the heart of these nations? Hold on tight because it's going to be a thrilling journey. The scene script. Starting the countdown at number 10, we have India, followed by North Korea and the United States. India, the world's largest democracy, is often criticized for its political and religious conflicts. The country's ongoing disputes with neighboring Pakistan and China, as well as deep-seated societal issues like caste-based discrimination, often overshadow its rich cultural heritage and rapid economic growth. Next up is North Korea, a country that has isolated itself from the rest of the world. With its notorious human rights record and constant threats of nuclear warfare, North Korea has earned its place on the list. Its totalitarian regime, led by Kim Jong-un, has been accused of numerous human rights abuses, including political repression, mass surveillance, and widespread censorship. On to the United States, a nation often seen as a symbol of freedom and democracy. However, it's frequently criticized for its foreign policies and military interventions. Moreover, the country's struggle with racial tensions, gun violence, and political polarization doesn't go unnoticed on the global stage. These nations, each with their unique set of issues, are often under the global spotlight, facing criticism and scorn. India, with its internal conflicts, North Korea with its oppressive regime, and the United States with its controversial foreign policies, all have aspects that have caused international disapproval. However, it's important to remember that these issues don't define the entirety of these nations. India is a land of diversity and rich heritage. North Korea's citizens live lives beyond the regime's control, and the United States is a mosaic of cultures and ideas. So, while the governments of these countries may be scorned, their people often tell a different story. A story of resilience, of unity and diversity, and of hopes and dreams that transcend political boundaries. These nations, despite their advancements, have been the subject of global scorn. But wait, the list is just getting started. Before we continue, welcome to my channel. I am Mort. A wanderer at heart, I've embarked on a journey to explore the complexities of our world. Here we delve into intriguing topics, we challenge widely accepted narratives, and we learn together. If you enjoy these epic and educational explorations, consider joining our community. Give that thumbs up button a click and hit subscribe to ensure you don't miss out on any of our adventures. Now, let's get back to our countdown. We have 7 more countries to unveil. Moving on to numbers 7, 6, and 5, we have Saudi Arabia, Russia, and Iraq. Now, these 3 nations certainly have a way of making headlines, but let's dig a little deeper to understand the reasons behind the global animosity towards them. Starting off with Saudi Arabia, the 7th on our list. Now, this nation's reputation is largely influenced by its strict interpretation of Islamic law, which has raised eyebrows for its implications on human rights. The country's stringent governance is often viewed as oppressive, particularly when it comes to women's rights and freedom of expression. Saudi Arabia's involvement in the Yemen conflict, which has led to a devastating humanitarian crisis, has also garnered it a fair share of global disdain. Next up, we travel to the largest country in the world, Russia. Known for its vast landscapes and rich history, Russia is also infamous for its political climate. Under the leadership of President Vladimir Putin, Russia has drawn criticism for its authoritarian government, suppression of dissent, and alleged meddling in foreign affairs. Furthermore, its annexation of Crimea in 2014 sparked international controversy, leading to a wave of sanctions and a strained relationship with the West. Lastly, we turn our attention to Iraq, fifth on our list. Iraq's reputation has been marred by years of conflict, political instability, and human rights abuses. The nation's invasion by the US in 2023, under the pretext of weapons of mass destruction, led to a prolonged war that had far-reaching consequences, not just for Iraq, but for the entire Middle East. The rise of ISIS and the subsequent war on terror have further compounded the nation's struggles, making it a focal point of global unrest. From the Middle East to the heart of Europe, these countries have certainly stirred the pot, but the top four might surprise you. Now, we're down to the last four. At number 4, we have Israel, followed by Iran and Syria. Israel, a country rich in history and culture, is often under the global microscope due to its ongoing conflict with Palestine. The world watches as this decades-long dispute continues to unfold, causing international concern and, unfortunately, a fair share of disdain. This, coupled with the country's strong political ties with some of the world's superpowers, often places Israel in a position of scrutiny and controversy. Next on our list is Iran. Iran's reputation on the global stage is marred by its nuclear ambitions and its relations with Western powers. The country's strict theocratic regime, coupled with alleged human rights abuses, has made it a subject of international criticism. It's important to remember, however, that the views of a government don't necessarily reflect the sentiments of its people. Syria, a country once known for its vibrant culture and history, has been torn apart by a civil war that has been raging for more than a decade. This war has led to an unprecedented humanitarian crisis, with countless lives lost and millions displaced. The global community's response to this crisis has been mixed, with some blaming the Syrian government, others the rebel factions, and yet others the foreign powers involved. This has resulted in a widespread negative perception of the country. But let's not forget, these countries are not just their governments or their conflicts. They are also home to millions of people who dream, love, and strive for a better future. People who, despite the hatred directed towards their nations, continue to live, work, and hope. These nations have been the epicenters of many global disputes, but which country tops our list as the most hated? Let's find out. And finally, the title for the most hated country goes to China. Now, this is a country that needs no introduction, but its reputation is a complicated one. At the heart of global disdain for China lies a trifecta of reasons: political dominance, economic policies, and human rights violations. Let's start with political dominance. China's rise as a global superpower hasn't been without controversy. Its assertive, sometimes aggressive stance on territorial disputes and its influence over other nations have led to a significant amount of animosity. Next, we have economic policies. China's economic practices, particularly its state-controlled economy and alleged intellectual property theft, have been points of contention with many countries. It's a complex issue and one that has put China at odds with much of the international community. Lastly, we must discuss human rights violations. Reports of censorship, surveillance, and alleged mistreatment of ethnic minorities have tarnished China's image on the global stage. These issues have sparked widespread condemnation, further fueling the animosity. It's important to remember, however, that this disdain is directed towards the government and its policies, not the Chinese people. Many individuals within China and abroad are working hard to address these issues and foster positive change. And there we have it, the top 10 most hated countries in the world. Remember, this list does not reflect the sentiments of the people, but rather the actions of the governments.